Hello everyone and welcome to another ISAR Star Club webinar, and I would like to introduce myself. My name is Zorana Stanojevic. I'm ISAR Global Director for Serbia and also Coordinator of Global Directors for ISAR. Tonight, today, it depends where you're from and where you are at the present. I have a really great pleasure to introduce David Cochrane. Hello, David, and welcome.
Hi, Zorana. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you.
Yes, and today David is going to give his presentation, The Power of Midpoints in AstroMaps. But before that, I would just like to remind you that ISAR is organizing first ever Global Directors Conference, which is going to be Astrology Day Symposium in March, 19th and 20th of March this year. So if you're interested, you can look it up on the ISAR website under conference, or look it up on the Facebook or Instagram. So please join. There is going to be very interesting presentations. For tonight, I would like to introduce David, but I'm sure that a lot of you really do not need any kind of introduction for David Cochrane. David has been pioneer of the vibrational astrology movement and has made hundreds of tutorial videos available at AstrologyDC.com and at YouTube. He and his research team are regularly making discoveries that are presented at the annual Vibrational Astrology Conference. His forthcoming book, co-authored with Giselle Terry, describes one of the most exciting breakthroughs made in understanding astrology through intensive work with clients and various modern research methods. David received the Regulus Award for Discovery, Innovation, and Research in 2018. So it's really a privilege to listen and to hear what David has to say, because every time there is something new and something very much useful. Hello, David, and I'm very happy to listen to your presentation.
Thank you, Zorana. I very much appreciate that. I'm ready to take off here. Okay, so is everybody ready? I assume you are. We're going to talk about midpoints in AstroMaps and how midpoints, along with the usual planet lines that we use in AstroMaps, reveal special places. And by the way, there's my website for my instructional material, astrologydc.com, and an email address where you can reach me, david@astrologydc.com. Okay, let's get into this. All right, let me move this out of the way. Okay, AstroMaps. I think all of you are familiar with AstroMaps. It's an idea that was introduced by Jim Lewis decades ago, and Jim called them astrocartography maps. And some astrologers are very loyal to the methods that Jim Lewis developed. However, Jim saw relocational astrology and astromaps as an evolving system. Here's a quote from something he wrote, and I give the website address here at the bottom where this quote is from. He wrote, "Midpoints, another tentative idea that a location exactly equidistant from two astrocartography lines as measured along the line of latitude at which the place exists will experience a midpoint blended influence of two lines in question." Don't worry about the technical details of what he wrote. Basically, he said midpoints going halfway in between two lines might be very important. I'm mentioning this because this is what we're going to talk about today. It's an idea that Jim Lewis already had in mind and was curious about, and now, many decades later, we are convinced that midpoints are extremely powerful and will improve your work with relocational astrology if you include them in your astromap. So as I have here on this slide, not only are midpoints and astromaps important, as Jim Lewis suspected that they might be, but they are extremely important. That's what I'm suggesting. Now, let's dig into this. Putting midpoints in your astromap, is it really going to help? Is it really so totally awesomely cool as I'm describing? Well, let's think about a way to evaluate this. Think about places that you are drawn to. What is it that draws you to the place? What does that place mean to you? So maybe you're drawn to San Francisco or London or Paris. What is it about that place? Why is it important to you? Is it like a spiritual inspiration? Is it the artistic culture? Is it the kind of people that are there? Is it the mood and ambiance, the style? What is it that draws you there? Why is it important to you? Does it feel romantic? Does it just feel homey? What is it about that place? What is your connection to it? That's my first question. So you can think to yourself, some places that resonate for you in some way. Not that it's the perfect place or great in every way, but it makes a connection with you. And if you have done relocational astrology, are you able to really see that using the techniques that you currently use? Are you able to sense these specific kinds of connections you have to that place? And what I'm proposing is that if you include midpoints in your astromaps, you will see a lot more of why those special places are special for you and exactly the connection they make for you. Now, I'm going to give an example from my own chart of how midpoints help describe my connection to certain places, and then I'm going to describe it with a famous person. So I'm going to give two examples, my own chart and a famous person. And when I do the famous person, I'll add some additional ideas. So here's an example. I live in North Florida in a town called Gainesville, Florida. I was drawn here like a magnet in September 1972. I don't know, I was traveling down southeast United States and everybody told me to come here and I just couldn't leave. Something about this particular area drew me into it. And a lot happened as soon as I got here, way back in 1972. So I'm old, right? And back in 1972, I had just finished college. I came down here and a lot happened. I was initiated into my spiritual practice. It's where I discovered astrology. And very shortly after I got here, I started my yoga and meditation practice, became fanatically obsessed with astrology. And also, interestingly, I became popular on the local radio, television, and the local newspaper. I didn't have this in mind. It just kind of happened. And then I started making connections with leading astrologers when I was just like a baby in astrology. People like Dane Rudger, Mark Emmon Jones, Charles Jane. I had mail correspondence with them. I moved away from Gainesville for periods of time, but I always came back and I still live here. What is it that has kept me here for nearly 50 years? Now, I've been drawn elsewhere. It's not like Gainesville's like the place. And this summer, my wife and I are looking at places to live half the year in the suburbs south of Seattle. So it's not that Gainesville's like numero uno and I never want to go anywhere else. Now, so here's an astromap. I was born here in New York, Long Island, New York, and I drew a circle around it. And I moved and I put here, born here. So that's where I started. And then I moved, spent like my whole adult life here in North Florida. And I will also be spending more time in the Seattle, Washington area. Now here's an astromap. An astromap shows, as you probably already know, where planets are angular in the relocated chart. So if I move to Albuquerque, New Mexico, I would have Pluto opposition my relocated ascendant. I'm not sure I want to do that, but that's what would happen. Or if I move to Los Angeles, I'd have Jupiter conjunct the ascendant. So in your relocated chart, the planet positions do not change, but the house cusps change. And the AstroMap is a fantastic way to see where you would have a planet angular. This was the idea Jim Lewis came up with, to make a map to show you where the planets are angular. Now, interestingly, Gainesville, which has played a huge part in my life, has no lines going through it. And the yellow lines are to the ascendant and they're curved, and the vertical red lines are to the midheaven. So, for example, I have Mercury opposition the midheaven coming down here through the west side east of Phoenix, Arizona, and so on. Okay, so that's the AstroMap. And there it is, just nice and simple without those lines drawn on it. Now, some of you may know that the way Jim Lewis did his AstroMaps were called in Mundo. It's not the normal way we do astrology, and I'm not going to go into all the details of in Mundo, but with the in Mundo, the lines move a little bit, particularly the Pluto line can move a lot. And you can see that instead of going through Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's much further east. And these two lines intersect in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is probably one of the few states I've never been to, but anyway, so you get a similar map if you do in Mundo or if you do the normal zodiac longitude. I'll talk more about that in a minute. What I'm doing here is I'm clearing away some questions, issues, terminology that you may have heard so that we can focus on this midpoints. Now here is the same AstroMap for me, and I've added in aspects. And I'm doing it in zodiac longitude, not the in Mundo way that Jim Lewis did. I just showed you an example of that. But here we're doing it in normal astrology way, in zodiac longitude. And we don't have to do just conjunctions. I put aspects in. So for example, I have Mercury trine the ascendant, this yellow line coming through San Francisco, and so on. So you can put aspect lines in here. Here's a kind of nice one, Sun sextile the ascendant coming east of Chicago. So you can put any aspects in there. You don't have to just do conjunctions. Still nothing in Florida. The whole state of Florida has nothing. Over here in Seattle, there are some lines coming close to Seattle. In fact, Seattle, using normal astrocartography, is pretty wonderful. Venus opposition to midheaven, west of Seattle, Venus trine the ascendant, also a little west and north of Seattle. So again, the yellow curved lines are to the ascendant, the red vertical are to the midheaven, two Venus lines, but nothing here in Florida where I actually have spent a huge amount of time, and it was drawn here, and it's an important place for me. Okay, now we put in the midpoints. When we put in the midpoints, this area in Seattle is now loaded with stuff, not only the two Venus lines, but all kinds of midpoints. But look at Florida. So the midpoint lines come almost right through where I live. I put a white circle here for where I live, and on the east side of where I've lived for half a century is Saturn / Neptune. Slash means midpoint. People sometimes use slashes kind of liberally, but in the old midpoint system, slash meant midpoint. So Saturn / Neptune means that midpoint of Saturn and Neptune goes just east of Gainesville, Florida, where I've lived and still live. And its opposition means it's opposition the ascendant, or in other words, on the 7th house cusp. And the Sun-Jupiter midpoint is conjunct the ascendant. I happen to have two midpoints that are right smack on top of each other, going right through this area. And what I'm telling you is that if you add midpoints to your AstroMaps, get ready to be shocked. Things that are not showing up at all, boom, amazing, there they are. It's really extraordinary how powerful midpoints are. And it kind of amazes me that so few people use the midpoints, because once you start using them, everybody, without exception, that I know has experimented with them, reports this is amazing. You will see things come to light. They seem to be just as powerful as planet lines, sometimes even more powerful. And in this case, we have two midpoints. They're so exactly the same, it looks like just a thick yellow line. but it's actually two midpoints right on top of each other. And they describe my experience in here. And I believe it's these midpoint lines that describe my experience. So I've got a lot of stuff on this slide. Let's take it one point at a time. What we're looking at, this big chart wheel, is my relocated chart for Gainesville, Florida. And I have 20 degrees Pisces rising in the relocated chart. My birth chart, I have 3 degrees Aries rising. So again, your house cusps change, the planet positions are still the same. And here in this yellow box, I'm showing what's called a midpoint tree. And this midpoint tree shows that the ascendant over here at 20 degrees 3 minutes of Pisces, is conjunct the midpoint of Sun and Jupiter. Here's Jupiter at 1 Aquarius, Sun down here at 10 Taurus. If you go halfway between Sun and Jupiter, you're on the ascendant with a 1 degree 3 minute orb. And Neptune over here in the 7th house and 13 degrees Libra, and Saturn at 29 degrees Leo. If you go halfway in between them, you will end up at the 7th house cusp, also with a slightly over a 1 degree orb. This is extraordinarily powerful. If there's a place where you have two midpoint structures, that is a special place. So I've now described to you how to find special places. It's not just aspect lines. Very, very, very special places are where midpoints are. And if there are two midpoints, it's very, very, very special. And I'm going to show you why it's so special if there are two midpoints. Two to the ascendant or two to the midheaven. Not one to the ascendant and one to the midheaven. In this case, they're both to the ascendant. And the reason why it's so powerful is because there's a beautiful symmetrical pattern. It means that if you take the Sun and Jupiter, which is one midpoint, you take Saturn and Neptune, it means that the Jupiter and Neptune have the same angular distance as the Sun, Saturn. And here I have drawn in a little aspect grid, and I show, if you look at this aspect grid for Sun, Saturn, the Sun, Saturn angle from in my birth chart is 108 degrees 41 minutes. The Jupiter Neptune angle is 108 degrees 30 minutes, almost the same. They're both about 108 degrees, which is a minor aspect called a tridecile. So what happened in Gainesville, Florida? I moved down here after I got my bachelor's degree, and all of a sudden I'm on local TV. Like, whoa, here's this kind of nerdy, introverted, intellectual, spiritually aspiring kid. And all of a sudden I'm on local TV and newspapers and radio, and I'm getting invited to international conferences. Sun, Jupiter, big. I'm a big guy. Instead of being this quiet, introverted, nerdy idealist. And Saturn, Neptune. Saturn means like getting dead serious about your ideals. I end up living on the property of a New Age ashram, like an ascetic monk. Okay, some people think, oh, David couldn't be ascetic. Look at all that Taurus in the second house. Oh yeah, I'm an ascetic, I'm a monk. And so there I was living in a cabin at the beginning with no electricity on a New Age ashram, Saturn, Neptune. I'm a big guy, but I'm a monk at the same time. Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune. So what I'm telling you is that this stuff works. Now, I'm talking fast. I'm covering a lot of material because I want to, in an hour and a half, I want to give you some idea of what's going on. Now, if there are two midpoint structures, not only is the Jupiter-Neptune angular distance the same as Sun and Saturn, but you can do this diagonally across. The Sun-Neptune angle that I drew in purple is the same as the Jupiter-Saturn angular distance. This is just a fact. Whenever you have two midpoint structures, you have all these angular distances that are the same. They're like two strings tuned to the same note. So as we already saw, the Jupiter-Neptune angle is the same as the Sun-Saturn angle, about 188 degrees, and also the purple angular distances are the same. The Sun-Neptune angle and the Jupiter-Saturn angular distance are also the same. And also, I put in light blue here. Obviously, this is a midpoint, which means the distance from the ascendant to Jupiter is the same as ascendant to Sun by definition. It's at the midpoint. It's halfway in between. And the Saturn-Neptune means that the distance from the descendant to Neptune is the same as descendant to Saturn, obviously, because that's what midpoint means. And it looks like a Christmas tree. Look at all that cool stuff going on. There are all these things that are like the same distance. And even though they may not be a specific aspect in this system of astrology I use called vibrational astrology, all this is vibrating. It's like a little symphony going on. So if there's a place where you have two midpoints to the ascendant or two midpoints in the midheaven, you're going to have this whole little orchestra going on. This big music of the spheres. It's like bells ringing for you in that place. This is why I was drawn to Gainesville, Florida. This is it, and it describes exactly what happened. And in my case, the two midpoints happen to be right exactly on top of each other, nearly exact. So the closer they are, the more powerful it is. And it looks just like a thick yellow line. The alignment and the resonance is extremely strong. So what I'm telling you is if you start looking at midpoints, you're going to start seeing things going on with the places that are important to you that you've never seen before. Astrology really works. And the more we learn about how it works, the more amazing the astrology is. By the way, the second most important place for me in Florida, other than Gainesville, is St. Augustine, directly east. So when I go to St. Augustine, I go right through this yellow line. I'm on the other side of it. I almost never head west. I don't even know what's over there. I'd go, big cities, of course, Tampa, whatever. I go to them, anybody would. But I have a connection to St. Augustine and to Gainesville on both sides of this yellow line. Now, if you want magic in your life, and who doesn't, and you want to use relocational astrology to make magic, what you want to do is you want an AstroMap where the lines are powerful, but the astrology is not enough. There's also the culture. There's always a joke. Oh, I have a beautiful, astrocartography in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, or maybe some, in some rural area that's not attractive to you or whatever. So the place itself is important. So you have to combine common sense with what your taste is. So doesn't matter how good the astrology is. If the activities, the culture, and the quality of nature, the weather, the people, all have to resonate with you in order for the place to be exciting. So I was interested in spirituality. There was an ashram here. It's a university town. It's got a lot of rolling hills and trees. And so, there has to be enough to connect with the reality of the place and the astrology. Don't just use the astrology and think it will do wonders all by itself. Use common sense. When the two come together, the weather, like if you don't like tropical weather, or you don't like cold weather, whatever, that's not going to change. When you combine common sense with what appeals to you and what feels right with the astrology, when both of them come together, fantastic things happen. Okay, so astrology will not turn a cultural wasteland or a natural wasteland into something good. Wasteland according to your taste. Some people love long, hard winters and some people don't like them. You got the idea. Okay. Now, that's to introduce you to the ideas using my chart. Let's look at a famous person's chart. And this will help reinforce some of the things I said. I talk fast, I've covered a lot of material, but we're going to deepen our knowledge by looking at a famous person. Sorana, do we have any questions of something that is confusing? Should we take a question or two now?
Yes, there is a question. Are these calculations dependent on the house system used?
That's a good question, and we're focusing on the ascendant and the midheaven, and that does not depend on the house system used. Because even if you use whole sign houses, you still have a midheaven axis, the midheaven and fourth house that you put in your chart. It might be in your ninth house or 10th house. So what we're using is just the ascendant, descendant axis and the midheaven IC axis, those cardinal points, those 4 cardinal points, and they are the same with all house systems. So house systems is not an issue. Very good question. Anything else?
Well, there is a question about the 108 that Ellie says she just heard yesterday that the number 108 has magical properties, something to do with Egyptian philosophy. So,
right. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. 108 does have magical properties, but we're not going to get into that. Sorry. But yes, the fact that the 108 has some magical properties is another reason why my being on that line did magical things. It continues to do magical things. But nevertheless, there's other magic to create. Now, other places I'm interested in. But yes, good point. There is, but we don't have time to get into the details of that. But we do use that idea in vibrational astrology. Anything else?
Is there any software online that can calculate these midpoints?
I don't know. I don't know if astro.com or any of the others can do that. So I'm not sure. Okay, anything else?
Well, they're about the software. Can you get the midpoint chart on astro.com? What program shows midpoint lines and so on? So it's about the program.
Right. So I'm just using the Sirius software, there's a smaller version of Sirius called Kepler, and I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe all the features I'm showing you are also in Kepler. Kepler and Sirius are 2 different levels of the same software. But whether other programs can do this or not, I don't know, and I can't really address that. Well, I do know about the Matrix software, and it does do midpoints. It has a midpoint. Probably most of the programs you buy probably have the ability to show midpoints.
Okay. And there's an interesting question. Have you noticed if dignified or debilitated planets play a part in midpoints?
I'm not going to get into that because I want to show you
okay.
where we're headed here. Okay, you ready? Any more? Okay, it's a good question, but those of you who know me know that I've got at least 10 hours of stuff and I could talk nonstop. So there's a lot of stuff I want to cover, and a lot of people can talk about debilitation and whatever, but very few people can tell you any of the stuff that I'm telling you today. And I want to tell you things that almost nobody else knows, or very few people. So new material. Other stuff, there are lots of experts for. Now, all right, let me go back a slide. Well, you already saw the answer. So here's my question. Let's do a famous person. Can you think of a famous person who has a special place? Maybe an actor or a musician or a politician, some famous person who's known for some special place. And then we can apply these ideas and see how they work out. Well, I thought of one. Being an American, it's an American politician and a controversial one. But I'm going to use this person, even though he is so controversial, because he has a very special place. And this controversial person is Donald Trump. Now, as soon as I say his name, some of you, are excited and enthusiastic, and some of you want to shoot your computer or shoot me for even talking about him. He's controversial. Let's not worry about that. Let's just focus on the astrology. Whether you love him or hate him is not important. He's a person. He has a relocational chart. And he has this place that he's very special to him. Former President, USA President Donald Trump has his favorite resort, Mar-a-Lago. When he was president, I think if I would have heard about Mar-a-Lago one more time, we just said enough already. He's just crazy about his mansion that he has in it's called Mar-a-Lago Mansion in Palm Beach, Florida. He often refers to how much he loves Florida, and he even held presidential meetings at his Mar-a-Lago mansion. This was very unusual for a president to host events at a private location. He's clearly in his element in this Mar-a-Lago mansion that he has. It's a special place for him, and even if he never permanently relocates there. Now, on the subject of special places, they're not just places you live. You know, there's the old idea that was handed down through in Europe of having your summer home, places that you went to, that you would go to regularly, or retreat places. So having special places that you connect to, not necessarily live at, makes sense astrologically, because we have many important planetary configurations, and some part of us can find fulfillment at a particular place. This also relates to the idea of, you know, vacation homes, spiritual retreats, especially ones that are fairly regular. They will connect with some part of yourself that the place you live in does not connect with. And that's the case for Donald Trump with his Mar-a-Lago. So again, he's controversial. People love him and they hate him. Let's just put our personal feelings aside and just think about his personality, his behavior, not so much with an emphasis on judging it, but everybody can agree about certain personality traits and behaviors, and how they relate to Mar-a-Lago. And again, this is incredible how the astrolocality really works. Here is Donald Trump's relocation map with the midpoints and the aspects done in zodiac longitude. Same thing I just showed you for me. And he has one line coming down here through Florida on the central or east side of Florida, and it's a Sun-Jupiter midpoint. And he has moon trine the ascendant. Remember, the yellow lines are ascendant, vertical red lines are to the midheaven. He has moon trine the ascendant coming right off the east coast, and Sun-Jupiter midpoint going right down almost the middle, slightly east of Florida. Let me read my notes here. Donald Trump has a Sun-Jupiter midpoint line and a moon trine the ascendant line going along the east coast of Florida. By coincidence, I happen to have a Sun-Jupiter midpoint line, but remember my Sun-Jupiter line was curved the other way. Both of us have a Sun-Jupiter line just east of Gainesville by coincidence. So I told you what Sun-Jupiter did for me. I think it's related to the fact I ended up on all these media things. People knew me wherever I would go to the grocery store, and people would, like all these people would say hello, etc. And then I became popular throughout the world and so on. Sun-Jupiter midpoint line will blow you up. It will have you reach out on a large level. And I tend to be excitable and kind of a party animal when I'm in crowds, but most of the time I'm an introvert, don't see hardly anybody. So anyway, Trump has a more obviously Jupiterian personality. He's, you know, very flamboyant and always bigger is better kind of thing. So Sun-Jupiter is going to be very much his element, and he has moon trine. Okay, here again is that Sun-Jupiter for me curving the other way, curving, you know, up to the northeast. His curves, anyway, just an interesting coincidence that I happened to pick him. Of course, with me, I have my Saturn Neptune here. Trump has nothing like this. So this is the spiritual quest and the inner development and all this. That's not part of what we're seeing with Trump. And here we zoom into Florida with Trump to see it more clearly. And I put a white circle here where the Mar-a-Lago mansion is, pretty close to the moon trine ascendant. And there's the Sun-Jupiter, just to get a visualization of what's going on right there. Now, why is Mar-a-Lago so exciting and important to Trump? Why? How did he end up even acquiring it? And things don't happen by chance. The astrology is like this life force patterning. that is involved in everything we do. Now, one thing we can do in this Sirius software and also in the Kepler software is we can click on, Palm Beach, Florida, and get interpretations. We can get a pop-up wheel or interpretations. Here's the interpretation for ascendant trine moon and for ascendant conjunct sun Jupiter midpoint. It'll pull up the interpretation and tell you what the orbs are. So, excuse me, the orb for the trine is 20 minutes. So relocated to Palm Beach, at that location, Donald Trump has the ascendant trine moon with only a 20-minute orb, and we can see that along the coast and up here along the coast of Georgia would be exact, is the moon trine, and here's the sun Jupiter. The orb for the sun Jupiter midpoint is 41 minutes. Anything that's around 1.5 degrees or less is very noticeable. Now, here's what it says. Ascendant trine moon, a good place for you. You fall into a natural rhythm here, and things fall into place nicely. If you live in this area, it will become very comfortable, and you will find it difficult to leave, right? It's a trine, it's the moon, you're just in this happy, comfortable spot. And the sun Jupiter midpoint means you're likely to be very popular here, and you are supported and encouraged by the local community. Jupiter's benefic, etc. Now, let me show you this. In vibrational astrology that I practice, we have the way that we look at planets. I think most astrologers have their own little twist, their own little perspective. And let me tell you how we think of the moon in vibrational astrology. Because when we think of the moon this way, what happens to Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago is incredible. In vibrational astrology, we look at the moon as literally the past reflected into the present. What? Sounds abstract. What are you talking about? That's what it does. The moon reflects the past into the present. That's like memory. We associate the moon with comfort, habits, moods. All of these are the result of the long, deep past. Our moods develop over time. Moods are your memories that get embedded emotionally over time. So it's a form of memory. Comfort, habits, the word itself, disposition, all these things, past lives, all these things are the moon. To give you an idea of why we interpret the moon this way in vibrational astrology, here's the birth chart of Robert Zoller, famous astrologer, who is one of the people who revived medieval astrology. Now people are so excited about medieval astrology, essential dignities, and perfections, etc. All this excitement. Well, Zoller is not the only person who revived all of this ancient material. He wrote his very powerful book on Arabic parts. He brought it to life. Where is his moon? Conjunct the ascendant. His personality, in my opinion, isn't all that obviously lunar, and people will make sense out of anything. Say Pisces, oh, he's very intuitive. Oh, we say everybody's intuitive. Who isn't intuitive? Whose chart we would do if he was a musician, an artist, but more specifically, he is famous for having revived the past that everyone ignored. Moon conjunct descendant. Moon is literally the past brought to life. Now, I just wrote for this presentation my interpretation for ascendant trine moon, based on the vibrational astrology idea that the moon reflects the past into the present. And here it is. You connect to the heritage, history, and soul of this place. The customs and culture of this place feel natural and comfortable to you. And you can connect to something deeper than whatever trends, fads, and changes are happening. You keep this place anchored to its deepest roots, and you keep yourself anchored to its deepest roots. You can feel at home here because you are intuitively attuned to its history. I think we can all agree with this. It's just a certain emphasis that when we say the moon is the soul, it's your home, it's your tribe, it's like your ethnicity, it's your style. That is all saying history, 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 the rich, deep textures of our lives is the moon. If you use these interpretations, boing, you hit the bullseye. It's like you go right to the heart of what we're talking about. Because what happens with Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago is very similar to what Robert Zoller's life was about. In Mar-a-Lago, Trump revives the past. Here's the first line in the Wikipedia article on Mar-a-Lago, not about Trump, but just about Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago is a resort and national historical landmark. Boing. You can't make this stuff up. Historic landmark. Okay, this is the moon. This is the heritage. This is the foundation. You know, without heritage, without culture, without history, we have nothing. You know, we have no music, and we have no recipes, food stuff, nothing. That's all based on the soul of the place we are living in. And the United States is a new country, but it also has a history. And he goes right to what for an American is a deep history, because our history doesn't go back that far. So it's a resort and national historical landmark in Palm Beach, Florida, built from 1924 to 27 by serial company heirs and socialite Marjorie Merriweather Post. The 126-room, 62,500 square foot mansion since 1994 contains the Mar-a-Lago Club, a members-only club with guest rooms, a spa, and other hotel-style amenities. Donald Trump becomes immersed in this historical landmark where moon trines is ascendant. What I'm telling you is the aspect lines, they work, as you know, the midpoint lines work, and one thing that helps your interpretation is to go to the heart of what the planetary meanings are. So summary of 2 key points that I'm making. Number 1, put midpoint lines in your AstroMap. It's going to blow your mind. It's just, they work. They are at least as powerful as planet lines, possibly more powerful. If you're not using midpoint lines, you're leaving out some of the most powerful, important impacts that are going on. Number 2, if you interpret the planets with a simple, clear, and straightforward meaning, as we do in vibrational astrology, it can help you get right to the heart of what's going on, as we see with Donald Trump with his Mar-a-Lago in Florida, in Palm Beach, Florida. It's so literal, it's amazing. Now, again, I want to make a little comment here. There are 2 kinds of AstroMaps, Zodiac longitude and in Mundo. Zodiac longitude AstroMaps work, and everybody agrees that they work. The people who say they don't work have an extreme cognitive dissonance there, because we use zodiac longitude for everything. When we say Robert Zoller has the moon conjunct the ascendant, or if we say that Neptune is transiting your 7th house cusp, that's all zodiac longitude. That's what we use in astrology. And an astromap is just a different visualization of the same thing. So an astromap is like not something that's different from what you're doing when you're looking at an astrology chart. It's just a different visualization. So we all use zodiac longitude. We know it works. In Mundo may also work. And if it does work, then we should use it everywhere. We should use it with natal charts, with transits, etc. Because keep in mind that an astro map is just a different way of looking at what you already look at. It's a way of seeing where all the relocational charts would have, for example, moon trine the ascendant. It's not a different technique. It's a different visualization and way to see things that you always look at, where planets aspect angular house cusps, and I'm suggesting where midpoints are on those angular house cusps. Now, I'm going to tell you another thing here. As you know, those of you who are familiar with my presentations, cover a lot of material. Don't expect you to, memorize all this. It's all being recorded. ISAR, Richard Smoot and ISAR is going to email you the link, and it's in the library, so you can go over all this again. But I'm going to keep going here. I want to show you another thing that you can do to understand the details of what's going on. We see that for Donald Trump, his moon trine the ascendant. Here's this white circle where the Mar-a-Lago resort is. And he is doing his moon trine ascendant thing there. He's acquired a historical landmark. He's doing his Sun Jupiter thing, obviously. He's big, he's flamboyant, and he's, shows off, and he's proud, and, his big flamboyant mansion. He's doing his Sun Jupiter thing there. And, it's like a manifestation of it. So these qualities are there. Now there's another thing we can do. Next thing I want to show you, to go into more detail, is we can look at what Sun and Jupiter are doing in his chart. We can look at what they are doing in his birth chart. So, as I have here in this bottom paragraph, we look at Donald Trump's natal chart to see what Sun and Jupiter are doing in his chart. Are they trine? Are they sextile? If they're trine or sextile, which is smooth and free flowing, then life for Donald Trump anywhere near his Sun Jupiter is going to be very free flowing. Things come and go very easily if they're trine or sextile. If they're in square or opposition, it's more challenging kind of place. So we want to see what Sun and Jupiter are doing in the birth chart. So the rule is this: when you look at a midpoint line, you just mix those two planets together, Sun and Jupiter, you're going to be big right there in the light of day. You're big. But somebody asked before, do we look at the sign, the dispositors? First thing we do to better understand it, a midpoint, is we look at what these planets are doing with each other. So on the left is Donald Trump's birth chart, very late Leo rising. In his relocated chart to Palm Beach, the ascendant has moved backwards 9 degrees, and the midheaven has gone from 24 Taurus in the birth chart to 18 Taurus. It's gone back 6 degrees. So that's what this is all about. And the AstroMap is just giving us a way to see the effects of aspects and midpoints to these angular house cusps across regions of the world. And even though the charts look very similar, all that's happened is the houses have turned a little bit. The change in the aspects and the midpoints, it makes a dramatic difference. For example, here's his moon in the relocated chart for Palm Beach, Florida, where the Mar-a-Lago resort is. There's the moon at 21 Sag 12, trine the ascendant at 20 Leo 52. There's that, well, here it says 39. It got rounded off a little differently. 39 minutes before I said it was 20, what is that? 20, 52, 8. Well, no, that's right, 20 minutes. Moon is trine the ascendant with a 20-minute orb. So that's what we're seeing in the AstroMap. Okay, what's more difficult to see is that the midpoint of Sun and Jupiter in his chart are right on the ascendant in Mar-a-Lago. Okay, now so his Sun and Jupiter are trine. His Sun is at late 22 Gemini. His Jupiter is in 17 Libra. If you think a trine with a 5-degree orb is powerful, then that is going to affect his Sun-Jupiter line, because his Sun and Jupiter are in a big, fat, sweet trine aspect. Now, I'm not going to talk about the trine aspect so much, or whether 5 degrees is important or not. You have your own ideas on that. I want to show you something new about this. is that we can also include quintiles, septiles, noviles. In other words, if his sun and Jupiter are quintile to each other, 1/5 of a circle, considered to be a minor aspect, not very important, but in vibrational astrology, we think quintiles are just as powerful as squares. Yes, you heard that right. I know it sounds crazy, but we think quintiles are extremely powerful. So are septiles, 7ths of a circle, 9ths of a circle. They're very powerful. They're not minor. And we call this the vibration. If Sun and Jupiter are in 1/5 or 2/5, they're in a 5 vibration and they're playful, creative, exploratory. So here's the bottom line. Let me summarize. We see that Sun Jupiter midpoint is on Donald Trump's ascendant on the east coast of Florida. What does it mean? It means he's a big guy. Well, we know he's a big guy. He does everything in a Jupiterian way. He comes into his element on the east coast in central Florida. He's in his element. He feels big, grandiose. Now, what is the quality of that grandiosity? If it's playful, it's like big canvas art, like somebody who's doing big art projects on a large scale. This stuff becomes literally true. If it's 7 vibration, if his Sun and Jupiter are in 7 vibration, all of that bigness becomes deep, ponderous, introverted. He might start a large training facility or spiritual retreat, something like that, like a large scale, deeper, large philosophical level. It's still Jupiter, but now Jupiter's taken on this ponderous, deep quality. Or if it's 9, it's community-oriented, peaceful. What I'm telling you is this. We, using these techniques, we can pull up an AstroMap and we can pinpoint things that are so incredibly factual. The clients just believe like we're all psychics or we've Googled their names and found out something, because you can pinpoint what the quality is, what the vibration is. You put all this together and it becomes very specific. And there's more. If you think it's weird that we're using quintiles, septiles, and noviles, you ain't seen nothing yet, honey. It gets weirder than that, because we use 11ths of a circle and we think that they're powerful. It makes you restless, on edge, hungry, unstable. 13, something special, out of the ordinary. 17 is cross-cultural and empathic. You'll see people go into 17 vibration places who are actors, who are psychics, people who are moving into the stories of other people and feeling it. 19 vibration, these are places where you can reconfigure your life, change the way you've organized things, orchestrate something fresh, and so on. 23, 29, 31. I've got notes there. We look at the vibration of the planets in the midpoint structure and see what's going on. And also, there's other rules for looking at vibrations. If you double a vibration, the meaning is similar. 15 is 5 times 3. It combines 5 and 3. 21 is 7 times 3. So anyway, we have meanings for all these vibrations and rules for how to figure out new vibration meanings. So here's a way to see what vibration Donald Trump's Sun and Jupiter are in. It's an aspect listing, and I've selected the options to set the highest vibration to 32, and it's set to 16 degrees in what we call harmonic chart. Don't worry about that, but we set the orbs, and I put a square around Sun and Jupiter, and it tells me that his Sun and Jupiter are in 7/22nd aspect. His Sun and Jupiter are 114 degrees 31 minutes apart. That's a trine with a 5.5 degree orb. It's 5.5 degrees before the 120. It also happens to be 7/22 of a circle. If you take 1/22 of a circle, multiply by it, it's 7/22 almost exactly with a 1 minute orb, which means it's 97% strong. this fraction at the bottom tells us the percent strong. Bottom line is that Trump has a very restless, hungry, let's go back to these meanings for 22 vibration. 11 times 2. 22 will have the same meaning as 11, basically. Restless, on edge, hungry, unstable. Trump's sun Jupiter is never satisfied. It's 11 vibration sun, bigger, 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 bigger. It's nonstop, extremely strong. And I know this gets a little bit advanced, but just to give you like a preview, I know it's going to be hard to follow all this, but to give you a preview of how we can understand the details of what happens in somebody's relocational chart, we pull up the 11 vibration chart for Donald Trump. And we notice his sun Jupiter is in a very strong opposition. This is his restlessness, his bigger, 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 never big enough. You know, never enough money, never enough property, sun Jupiter. But what makes this sun Jupiter so strong is you need a third planet. 2 planets by themselves is not enough. You have a third planet and there's Venus. Very, very tight by our standards in vibrational astrology with these harmonic charts. Here's a sun, Venus, Jupiter. Venus, Jupiter means opulence, means wealth. Sun, Venus means I'm beautiful. He's got a very, very, very strong Sun, Venus, Jupiter in 11 vibe. So this is his unquenchable thirst for opulence. And the Sun, Jupiter midpoint is right on the ascendant at Mar-a-Lago. The place with, probably has crystal chandeliers, the works. It's amazing. You looking at these midpoints, looking at the vibration that they're in, you will see the qualities, the motivation, the interest, the style of the person, and how it's brought up, how it's magnified and accented in certain places. And this is what's making Mar-a-Lago for Donald Trump. Plus the moon trine the ascendant, it's a historical place. He has even a bigger configuration in 11 vibration. Mars, Saturn, Moon, Pluto, it's bigger because of 4 planets. Also very tight. This Mars, Saturn, Moon, Pluto in 11 vibration, because 11 vibration is impatient and restless, and Mars, Saturn wants to get down to work. This is Donald Trump's impatience with being lax or lazy. You're fired. You're late for work, you're fired, goodbye. You know, you want some assistance? Nope. Stop. Moon, Pluto, it's like a compulsive emotional, it is a compulsive emotional thing. Now, you may love it, you may hate it. Let's not get into that right now. We can all agree that, you know, he is like this, for better or worse, whether you love it or hate it or whatever. We can all agree. If you can't see that, I don't know how you cannot see it. What I'm saying is that this quality is from this configuration, and this is not happening for him at Mar-a-Lago. What's happening for him in Mar-a-Lago is Sun, Venus, Jupiter. And this is the place where he can be opulent and hobnob with other royalty, so to speak, prime ministers and presidents of nations and whoever else, big corporate executives in the lavish circumstances that he has in Mar-a-Lago. You will see what the vibration is, what the quality is, what the potential is, and what will develop for people, but you must include the midpoints. And if you go into detail with the vibrations involved with those midpoints, you will see all the details. I'm almost done and ready for questions. So let me just wrap this up. Let's summarize 4 key points. Number 1, numero uno, put midpoint lines in your AstroMaps. A lot of people think midpoints, there's nothing there. Why should I go to the point halfway in between Sun and Jupiter? There ain't nothing there, man. You know, like there's no planet, there's no asteroid, nothing. How could that, you know, faint nothingness really be powerful? A lot of people just intuitively just can't believe that midpoints could be so powerful. Well, they are. Atoms and molecules don't really exist either. They're just like wave functions. So, I mean, the whole material world is nothing but wave functions. So, don't worry about it. It's the way it is. They are extraordinarily powerful, extremely powerful. I think in many ways, they're more powerful than planet lines because they're more specific. Like if you're on Jupiter line, well, Jupiter can do a lot of things, but Sun Jupiter, no, Sun Jupiter is going to bring it into the light of day, and then I can see the vibration. You get a very clear story. It's more specific, it's more well-defined. Number two, if you interpret the planets with simple, clear, and straightforward meanings that we use in vibrational astrology, that helps. You don't have to like think of a million things. Like moon could be your mom, moon could be your home, moon could be the past, moon could be your habits, if you keep guessing 20 things, sooner or later you're going to get it. But if you go right to these essential meanings, it helps get to the heart of what's going on more easily. Number three of our 4 key points to summarize. Any place where there are 2 midpoint lines, such as for me in Gainesville, Florida, it's very, very special. Now, you can have special places that do not have 2 midpoint lines. Mar-a-Lago is very special to Donald Trump. He has only 1 midpoint line going through it. They're not the only places that are special, but they are special. There's a special power in those midpoint lines. And a lot of times with midpoints, you don't know the power is there until you go there, until you experience it. And that's why it's great for consulting, because a lot of times we'll consult someone and we'll say, you have these midpoints that can do this for you in this place. And they'll go, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Yes, really. And, it could be Mars, Jupiter, and Venus, Jupiter, and, things like that. And it's a huge marketing opportunity, and you can use this with business people, whatever, athletics, all kinds of stuff. There's huge potential. It's not always obvious. When I came to Gainesville, I didn't know all this was going to happen. But the midpoints don't always reveal themselves obviously until you tie into them. And then you tie into them and you find out they're massively important and extraordinarily powerful. Number 4, what I just showed you, if you're looking at a midpoint line, you can see what vibration the planets are in. And we often go up to 32 vibration for relocational astrology to see the details of what's going on. In natal charts, we go into the hundreds, believe it or not. But those very high vibrations cover very small areas in relocational astrology. So in relocational astrology, we only go up to 32 vibration. In natal astrology, we go extremely high. So how many vibrations we use depends on the context. Now, last few things, I think I have only 2 more slides or so. And then I'll talk to Zorna about what your questions are. Just to let you know, the ideas presented today are based on ideas that have been confirmed with controlled research studies, including some ideas evaluated with what we call hypothesis tests and statistical analysis, just to let you know about that if you're not familiar with it. We haven't done a lot of that. We've done a little bit of it with relocational, but the principles of what 11 vibration means, for example, is covered extensively in a book that's coming out within 1 week. We expect it out by February 1st. The name of the book is The Astrology of Bipolar Disorder, a Scientific Breakthrough. And you can order it now. We just put it on the order form. Won't charge, obviously until it's shipped, but we're expecting it within a week. Very excited about this book. It finally, at long last, presents the depth of evidence-based part of vibrational astrology. And I have a gift for you, late Christmas, I guess, or whatever. I have a gift. If you are a subscriber at my website, astrologydc.com. Oh, I left out the .com. Anyway, astrologydc.com. It's a subscription thing. If you order the book before March 1st, I will sign it. Maybe that's not such a big deal, but a little gift, because I have a gift for everyone else who's attending. If you're not a subscriber to Astrology DC, I'm giving you a free 1-week subscription, not to the whole site. It's a little bit of an abridged version. And so until Saturday, January 29th, it's live now. You can go to astrologydc.com, click on additional resources, and click on guest pass and enter the code, which is ISAR, ISAR in lowercase. I can walk you through that so you know how to do it. You also have my email address, david@astrologydc.com. I will try to respond to your emails. I have hundreds of unanswered emails. I'm not able to keep up with all the correspondence, but I'll look out for emails related to this lecture for at least a few days. So anyway, a little pass, not to the whole Astrology DC, but just a little gift. You can check it out, have fun with it. Maybe you'll decide to subscribe, whatever. So I think that's it. Yes, that's it, my friends. Let me go back to the top. Whoops, what did I do? Yeah. There, opening screen, which has that website and the email address. And Sarana, we are at 6 minutes after the hour. We got 24 minutes. What's happening out there?
Okay, I'm back, and I just want to take you back to when you were explaining how you found your special place in Florida. So there is a question, have you done the synastry between you and Gainesville, Florida?
Well, I have looked at synastry. The synastry, if I understand the question correctly, or at least how I think of it, is that there is a birth chart for Florida. There's a birth chart for a city or a town. Sometimes there are multiple charts. There might be the chart of when it was founded, when it was named, when it was incorporated. In my experience, and same thing for the state, and you have it for the country. So, you know, if you live in Germany, you have your village that you're in, or your city, you have your province, you have your country. As in almost any country, you have these different levels. I've looked at those charts. They do work. I find that they relate more to your relationship to the political system. If you're involved in politics or large scale business activities that depend on relationship to the government, those things can be very important. If that's not the case, like that's not the case for me, I'm involved in all kinds of international activities, but not directly at a governmental level, I found that it's not very important. And also it's messy because you have so many charts. And yeah, so I don't rely on that.
Okay, there's another question. Do all charts have places with midpoints at midheaven or ascendant?
No, they do not. Let's look at Donald Trump's. I don't like to talk about myself so much. It's kind of unusual. So I'm going to talk about him instead. Again, where is he? Whoops. No, I can't find it. we just looked at it. There it is. Okay, here's Donald Trump's chart. Now, if you look at this, you'll see there are areas where there's not any midpoint stuff, like the whole middle of Texas for Donald Trump. He has Neptune sextile the ascendant going through the middle of Texas. I don't know if you see my cursor. Do you see my cursor, Zordana?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, you may not be able to read it, but this is Neptune sextile. And that yellow means the ascendant, going right through Texas. And then he's got a Mars trine the midheaven going through a little bit west of central Texas. No midpoints, very few aspects. This means Texas is just not a hot, special area for Donald Trump. It's not a place where he's going to tend to do something exceptional or have very strong meaningful connections. Now, maybe Texas culture and the land and, you know, everything about it does connect with him. So we're only looking at the astrology, in which case he would like Texas, but he still would not tend to form a connection that's like a soul connection or big things for him. So it's these places where a lot of midpoints are very close to each other. He's got one here, Mercury, Mars midpoint and Venus, Pluto midpoint. Just like mine going through Florida, they're right on top of each other, this thick yellow line going through Monterrey, Mexico, southwest corner of Texas. Now, again, you have to combine the reality of the place with the astrology. If there's nothing here but cornfields and what, you know, things that he's not going to be that interested in unless he, you know, invests in some kind of agriculture or whatever, or maybe there's some mountain retreat or something. Overall, it's just not going to happen. And if culturally it doesn't appeal to a person, it has to be a combination of what's there, what's happening, how it connects with you, and the astrology. And the very details are involved. But the answer to the question is no, there are places that are not special and there are places that are special.
Thank you. Carol says, I've seen that the geodetic option is available in astrocartography. Do you find geodetics valid and have you used them?
I have not used geodetic. I mean, I've looked at it. I mean, when I say I haven't used it, I haven't used it for hundreds of hours and become comfortable with it. I mean, I play around with it. You know, astrology is so vast that for anything that any one astrologer knows, there has to be 99 things that are true that we don't know. So the fact I don't use geodetic is not to imply that geodetic may not be powerful. I just have not been able to, you know, connect with it. So I'm familiar with it. I played with it. I played with different variations of it. I've worked with astrologers who've used geodetic, and I've attended lectures, but I haven't developed a comfort zone with it.
Okay,
But again, that's not a criticism, just telling you there's certain things we get and certain things we don't get.
Yes. Richard Smoot is commenting that Solar Fire also does this, calculations of the midpoints and makes.
Yeah, I would suspect that probably any program you buy that has relocational astrology probably has the ability to put midpoints in there. So yeah, but it's good to get that confirmed.
Yes. Okay. Marlene is asking, are you saying that keep orbs to 1.5 degrees, or can the orbs be larger? Can orbs be equated to miles? So how many miles away from a location?
Okay, this is a very good question. The orb for a midpoint structure is 1.5 degrees. It can go out, you know, it goes out to 2 or 3 degrees, but once you're beyond 1.5 degrees, it's very weak. And in vibrational astrology, astrology I do, orbs are very strict. Like when the orb is 0, it's full strength. When the orb is halfway to maximum, it's 50%. We're very strict. If an orb is big, the influence is weak, period. Because in vibrational astrology, we look at the astrology as something real. It's not just symbolic, it's really there. There's a real force there. And once you get out above 1.5 degrees, it's so weak that it's not really important. That's the answer to the orb question.
Yes,
now,
thank you.
the miles business, we do not use miles. Throw it out. We don't use it. Just forget it. The whole miles thing is just because people have no way to see it on their maps, so they just convert miles to orbs, but it doesn't work because the number of miles that equals 1 degree to the ascendant depends on the latitude you're at, depends on what degree of the ascendant is rising. It's such a complicated, what you want to know is the orb. Like if you were looking at somebody's birth chart, you would just look at the orb. you just want to know the orb. And so I can bring up the Sirius software and show you, but in any program, you can probably click on the point and see what the orb is. I showed you in the Sirius software, it'll pull up the interpretation and you'll see what the orb is. You need the actual orb.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There is a question. Do you use the parallax moon correction?
I do not use parallax moon correction. Many years ago, back 45 years ago or so, I thought to myself, boy, these astrologers aren't very smart. They don't even use where the moon actually is. They're using the moon from the center of the earth. Do you live in the center of the earth? I don't. And I thought, well, this is so whacked out. We don't use the actual distance between planets. And I thought, my God, if we start doing this stuff with some common sense, it's really going to work a lot better. So I intuitively was very attracted to the parallax moon because it's where the bloody thing actually is when you look up at the sky, not where it would be if you live in the center of the earth, which seems ridiculous to me. But in all the research projects we've done, including quantitative tests, the hypothesis tests, and statistics, the good old moon astrologers have always used has always worked better, which was really disturbing to me. But, you know, I have to go with the results. And so we have not been able to get validation of parallax correction, despite the fact that intuitively it seemed more appealing. Now, since then, we've come up with theories for why parallax correction isn't helping. We don't know why, but anyway, that's the experience. And it's not all just personal experience. As you'll see in the book that comes out within the next week, we've got data. And, you know, all this data uses the normal moon that everybody uses. We have rerun a lot of the research with parallax corrected. All we have to do is check the box for parallax corrected, run it through, and then all of the statistical significance gets weaker. It always gets weaker. So far, we have not been able to confirm it. Now, that doesn't mean it's not true. Maybe future research will tell us something we haven't found yet. So, you know, my approach to astrology is that we have levels of confidence based on our observations, and over time we learn more. But that's where we're at right now.
Okay, good. There is a question regarding Trump's chart. It would be interesting to see what Trump's AstroMap looks like in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it is interesting. He has Mars conjunct, this is his astromap. He has Mars conjunct the ascendant going right smack through Washington, D.C. So this is something that no matter whether you are using the techniques I'm talking about or not, yeah, if you relocate his chart to Washington, D.C., it moves his Mars right on the ascendant. And so, you know, he's all fired up and, you know, more ambitious than ever in Washington, D.C. So there are some things that are the same using the methods that I use with the methods other people use, and some things that are different, like the midpoints thing is different. There's some slight differences in the way we interpret planets, but the planet lines are still there, and that's, you know, that's there for everybody. So that is interesting, and it fits what happened in his presidency, I think, pretty reasonably well.
What minor aspects have you found to be powerful in interpreting astromaps?
Everything up to 32. The ones that are especially important are ninths. Maybe I should bring up the software and I can show you. The ninths are very important. The nobiles, those are comfort zones. Let me just show you. Let me bring this up. I don't have it running right now. The ninths show you the places you're likely to live. Trines, sextiles, the 1/9, 2/9, and 4/9 aspects are sweet spots, especially where Moon or Venus is involved. So let me stretch this out a little bit. well, I'll just do the whole screen. There we go. So let's take, I'll just show you real quick an example of it. If I take my chart and I do there's all kinds of maps here. I'll show you a very cool one. I'll show you, for example, for the United States, a treasure map, and we'll do friendship and family treasure map. And this will find the orbs and how far they stretch, and it makes it bright red where it's exact. And you'll see that going through Gainesville, Florida, the east side of Gainesville, I have Venus. It says Venus 140 degrees. This is my AstroMap for friendship and family. Venus 140 degrees from the midheaven, also going between Gainesville and St. Augustine, along with the other things we saw, the Sun, Jupiter, and the Saturn, Neptune. And Venus 140 degrees from midheaven means it's 40 degrees from the fourth house cusp, which is a novile. And noviles are sweet. If you ever go to a place where you have noviles to Moon or Venus, you may never leave. So be careful, because they're like glue. Let me say that again, where Moon or Venus is in a novile, sextile, or trine, there are three novile aspects: 1/9, 2/9, and 4/9. That's 40, 80, and 160 degrees. Also the sextile, which is 60, and the trine, which is 120, to Moon or Venus. Venus will feel like such a sweet, beautiful place, like everybody loves you and everybody looks beautiful to you when you're there. I've done funny things to people, like where they're on a Venus line like this. They'll say something like, "Oh, I own a house there." I said, "Oh, and you grow roses. You have roses in your yard." And they go, "How do you know I have roses in my yard?" Because Venus line is there. You always end up with roses or lilies or something. It's just like every time. You don't see exceptions to it. Or some other flower that's very fragrant, like a rose or a lily or something. So it, really works. So there are all kinds of aspects that are important for different reasons, depending on what you want. For artists, you want 5 vibration. So I can right click here and go to the culture and creativity. This is a lot of 5 vibration stuff. I can tell you amazing stories about consultations where you see huge 5 vibration for an artist, and you tell them that your artistic creativity and opportunities will increase there because it gives a free flowing. Also inventors, discovery, and these bright red lines, are where that's strong. So the answer to your question is that they're important in different ways. I once consulted a guy who was training for the Olympics, and I sent him to train where his 7 vibrations were very strong, because he said he kept getting distracted. He kept going out to parties and he was smoking dope and he didn't want to. And I said, "Go here. You won't smoke any dope. You won't be running after all the pretty girls. Go here and you'll train." And I saw him a few years later, and he said he's got a good shot at winning a medal. The training was working out beautifully. So yeah, you can get different things. Also a great place for people to study. Done it with people in college, again, who are trying to avoid the parties and just want to buckle down and be in the library and so on. And 7 vibration is good for that. And you look at the specific planets involved. Mercury, Saturn, Mars, Saturn, and 7 vibration, great for studying. Mars, Saturn for training. So the answer to your question is they're important for different reasons, depending on what you're trying to do.
Marlene would like to know that in astrocartography, they say people from the planetary lines can be significant for you in the nature of the planet. Is that true of midpoint lines?
Yes, yes. Yes, it's true. Your whole life will take on that quality. So your activities, the people, but it's not like you're just magnetizing the people. Like if you move to a place like I did where I have Sun-Jupiter line, it's not just like, it's like some like little magnet, like, oh, I'll meet a bunch of fat cats, a bunch of people with a lot of money and, wheelers and dealers. Is like your whole being becomes Jupiterian. So after I was living in Gainesville for like less than a year and I was studying astrology, people said, oh, we need to interview an astrologer on TV and we can't find any. Can we interview you? And I said, well, I've been doing this year. Good enough. Come on TV. All right. I'll go on TV. And they said, oh, that was great. We want to put you on radio now. So yes, it's other people, it's invitations, it's activity. Um, it's just your whole world gets colored by that, by those, it brings out that side of you, even sides of you that you didn't know you have. So I just want to emphasize, it's not like some isolated like thing. Your whole world becomes colored. I mean, I can tell you many, many stories of, we don't have time, but your whole world becomes enmeshed in that activity. And yes, other people are part of it. They will become part of it, but you will feel it in yourself as well.
What midpoint lines or vibrational lines that you may want to avoid or find it difficult, counterproductive or troubling?
Very good question. Uranus lines are usually bad. Now I'm a Uranian person. I love Uranus. Uranus is the coolest thing ever. I don't like to follow rules. I like to, I was a jazz musician. I like to improvise. It just, I'm Uranian. It's not like I don't like Uranus, but the reason Uranus is not good in relocational astrology is that it causes surprises. And people don't want surprises. Like if you go on vacation and you think you're going to go to, Maui and, in Hawaii or something, and the plane is late and it gets rerouted and you can't go to that hotel, it's not fun, or, you get fired from your job. People are really looking very often to just have a normal life, just something to work. So Uranian things like Saturn, Uranus, midpoint, Mars, Uranus, the tendency for disruption is very, very strong. You have to be in a situation where the disruption is okay. If you have children, it's a disaster. I mean, kids need to grow up. They can't have all this stuff changing all the time, getting fired, and now you got a new job somewhere else and they're going to move across town. Anyway, those things are difficult. And anything that you're weak in can be bad for you. So we've used this for drug rehabilitation. We've done it for health rejuvenation. We can use this for anything. And you look in the chart and you see what kinds of things, like Uranus Neptune midpoint is great if you're psychically stable. But if you're psychically unstable, you might just start hallucinating like crazy, drugs or no drugs, let alone if there are drugs. So there's some things dependent. But Uranus is much more dangerous than I would have ever thought.
There's another interesting question. How do you calculate a good place for both of you and your life partner? Do you look at the map separately for each person, or does astrolocality work for composite charts?
Okay, that's a good question. So what you do is you look at the charts individually, and that's very, very, very important because very often the attraction is for one person more than the other. Like I told you what's going on for me for Gainesville, Florida. Sometimes there are just like in your face kinds of things going on. So for example, if we do a relocation map for my wife, Faye, now she was born halfway around the world in the Philippines, but if we just do, for example, United States, and I just do a basic line, let's just throw in aspects and midpoints, and her, what I did the whole world. Sorry, I meant to do United States. Well, anyway, this is conjunctions only. Her sun conjunct the ascendant goes right through Gainesville. She moves halfway around the world, right smack on her sun line. And she runs this international business and all this stuff. So for her, Gainesville is for her a place to shine, run international business and whatever. You know, for me, it's a place to do my spiritual thing and reach out. Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn, Neptune. It has a different meaning for both of us, but it's good in different ways. And then the other thing you can do for compatibility is if I right click on this, I can compare her planets to my house cusps and vice versa. So what you do is over here, you compare the charts. I think you can probably do this in any software. But anyway, you do one person's planets to the other person's house cusps, and that's a synastry. It works better than trying to do composite. So this is phase planets to my ascendant in midheaven. And this shows you where the connectivity happens. And so this can show, you know, what places are romantic for you, where you study together, or you do businesses together. But the composite chart has some problems and technical problems with trying to do AstroMaps with it. But this works very nicely. And you do it twice. You do, if it's say his and her, you do his planets to her planets. So I'm doing it from her chart. Then I go to my chart and do the other way around. And it shows you, it really does show how you relate to each other. Yeah.
Okay, we have a bunch of questions. I haven't had a time
By the
to.
way, let me interrupt you. This is phase planets to my house cusps. Phase Jupiter is conjunct my midheaven, smack through the middle of Gainesville. That's shocking.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know, I don't have anything to do with the businesses. I don't care about business. It doesn't interest me. So, I mean, as long as I have my computers and my books, I'm happy. So, you know, she's the one doing all the Jupiter to my midheaven. She's the one doing it all and promoting it all and whatever, you know, that is really stunning. For any of you who have any idea what's going on in my life, that's pretty shocking. So she's like promoting and doing all this stuff for what for my stuff. She's running the whole business and that's really shocking. Some people think I actually have something to do with all this stuff. I just figure it out, but I don't actually believe in selling things. It's not part of my understanding of life. So anyway, that's amazing. So it works. Sorry, but that's really incredible.
Yes, there is a lot of thank you for this presentation. And the last question, is a place where the midheaven and ascendant lines cross particularly powerful?
Yeah, I mean they're powerful, but like here we see the moon conjunct. There's a lot going on there, but it's not as powerful as it might look. It seems powerful because you're seeing things crossing. Visually, it's kind of stunning. But those things running parallel to each other are just as important. So for example, in my chart, where we saw the Sun, Jupiter, and the Saturn, Neptune going right on the east side of Gainesville, you don't see this fancy crossing thing going on, but that's even more powerful, two midpoints right on top of each other. So yes, it's important, but it's not like it's, you know, the hot, like X marks the spot or something. It just means there's a lot going on.
Okay, I just have a lot of questions regarding the software. So would you remind them that they can look it up on your channel and they can probably look at the presentation of Sirius or Kepler and finding, how do you explain finding these lines?
Right. So I think almost any software, you know, that does AstroMaps will allow you to put midpoints and things like that. You know, the thing about software is it's not just a matter of can a program do it? It's, do you like the look and feel of it? Do you like, the options, the way it works? It's not like a binary thing. Oh, it has it or it doesn't have it. But, I'm one of the developers of the Sirius software and the Kepler software. I'm also one of the owners of the Matrix software. Faye runs all this stuff, but I'm involved in the technical development part of it. And so I'm showing you the Sirius software. But yeah, there's the website, astrosoftware.com, and you can go to products and you can, read about the programs that I'm showing. I hope that answers the question.
Well, actually, I was thinking about the YouTube videos that you
Oh yeah.
present,
So
how
yeah,
do you, yeah.
right. Oh yeah. Thank you very much. You're smarter than I am, Zorna. I didn't think of that. So if you go to youtube.com, and you type in like my name, say David Cochran Astrology or something, and then you'll see David Cochran's Astrology. And so this is my YouTube channel. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see these different topics: uploads, popular uploads, lessons, harmonic astrology, relocational astrology, special topics, etc. Kepler and Sirius software. So here's a bunch of videos on the software. And these introductory videos will walk you through, how the software works. So all this stuff is available here for free on YouTube. What I'm doing is I'm moving some of the things to astrologydc.com, and all the new exciting stuff is going on astrologydc.com, which is a subscription thing. And so if you have a subscription, you can click on this video library for subscribers only, enter the password, and it has a few hundred additional videos that are not on YouTube. So I've made some 700 or 800 videos, and some of them are only available here at for a subscription. It's like $5 a month or $55 a year. And each one of these has like dozens of videos. And here's a lot of relocational astrology at astrologydc.com. And not all of this is available at YouTube. So here's one, the spiritual dimension of relocational astrology. And what I'm giving to all of you for 1 week, those of you who are not subscribers, is that in addition to the YouTube, which already has hundreds of videos, you can also go down to the bottom of astrologydc.com, click on additional resources, and then go here, guest pass. Now on your mobile phone, it works basically the same way. You'll see guest pass at the bottom. And for 1 week until next Saturday, the password here is ISAR, ISAR in lowercase. So that password will be there for 1 week. So in addition to the hundreds of videos at YouTube, you can get a few hundred more over here for 1 week. This doesn't have all of the buttons that the full members have, but it has a lot of them. It doesn't have the relocational. Maybe I didn't really need to give you this gift because there's already hundreds on YouTube for free that are there.
Okay, and the last question regarding the book, for you and Giselle, how they can get it and how much what's the price?
Right. So go to astrosoftware.com, and go to purchase right here at the top. Astrosoftware.com, click on purchase and scroll to the bottom, and you'll see books. And we just added it. The Astrology of Bipolar Disorder, the Scientific Breakthrough. Actually, we're putting just my name as the author, and the work was done by both of us. But anyway, it's $39.95 is the price. It's 280 pages or so. So large paperback, large number of pages. And so anyway, you can just check it. And then down at the bottom, it has shipping, which is $5 in the US. Now, within a month or so, we're going to do print on demand, and then it will be available around the world at a reasonable shipping charge. So if you're not in the United States, wait a month or so, and we'll have it available, on Amazon and other places with a reasonable shipping charge. But right now, the only reasonable shipping charge is in the US for $5. It's $40 outside the US, but we'll take care of that in a month or so.
Okay, good. Okay.
Oh, and book will be shipping by the 1st of February. So if you place the order before then, you'll just get a confirmation saying that we'll charge your card or whatever it is and ship it to you when it's ready. They're not going to charge it now, but it's already been sent to the publisher and everything, and we're just waiting for it. We sent it, I think, yesterday or day before yesterday.
Okay, guys, so we have to wrap it up. This was really a nice experience, and I believe that we can stay and talk to David maybe for another hour with the questions pouring in and with such an interesting topic. So David, thank you very much. This was really interesting and a great privilege to hear directly from you explaining this topic, and I think that everybody is inspired to look into it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Suardana, and thank you everyone for coming. Really appreciate the time to spend with you. I love you all. God bless. Namaste.
God bless and take care. See you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.